It's 1998, in the emergency room of the University of Colorado Hospital in Denver. The place is slammed, and an exhausted first-year medical intern is overwhelmed as 6 new patients arrive. In that moment, he decides it might be time to run out the door and become a comedian.
I knew I couldn't go back.
You just put it out there.
She said you've got less than a year to live.
Just dug even
Luck
deeper.
is the residue of design.
Nobody else was doing it, so why couldn't I?
That was the turning point.
Hi, I'm Phil Keoghan. Welcome to the BUCKiT podcast, where I talk to mavericks, innovators, and disruptors. People who take chances. Those who swerve off the predictable road, face their fears, and refuse to say no. Amazingly resilient people who are motivated and tenacious. Those who have said buck it and who epitomize what it means to tick it before you kick it. You'll no doubt know today's guest as the host of NBC's American Ninja Warrior. He's also been an actor on The Drew Carey Show, NCIS and General Hospital. He's one hell of a comedian, but also a cancer survivor, health advocate, and winner of Celebrity Apprentice. Matt Iseman graduated from Princeton with honors and earned a medical degree from Columbia University. Clearly a smart dude, and cut out to be a doctor, which he became. But he also cut out of being one, which is the beginning of Matt's story. Is there a doctor in the house? Or more accurately, was there one? Perfecto. You know, I've met you, half a dozen times. Mm-hmm. And every time we always have a laugh. But I just can't believe you were a doctor. I mean,
I don't
I'm just
strike anyone as a doctor, do I?
No. I mean, was there a pivotal moment? Do you remember where you were? So take us into that moment.
So I remember it was January of '99, and to give it a little context, I go to medical school, graduate, come back to Colorado, where I'm practicing medicine at the I'm doing residency. I'm doing my training at the University of Colorado, where my dad's a professor. Christmas Day, we end up rounding together. So he's the attending physician, I'm his resident, and he couldn't have been. It's the greatest gift he probably ever could have gotten, to have his son
must have been in heaven,
following in his footsteps.
Right.
A month later, literally, right. Following in his footsteps, having to answer his questions. And a month later, I'm in the intensive care unit. We're getting slammed. We just had 6 admissions, and I'm there with a second-year student, and they're like, just figure out what this patient needs. And so I'm sitting there trying to make life or death decisions. And I know there's someone who's going to check my work, but I go, in 6 months, I'm going to be the person making these decisions. And it just hit me that I didn't feel that I warranted that responsibility, because I didn't feel committed enough. And that was the moment where I just felt like this is not good for me. This is not good for my patients.
A switch moment?
It was just this moment of when I left the hospital that morning, I knew I couldn't go back. I couldn't continue. I couldn't keep doing it, because it was just this feeling of either something was going to happen. Either I would break, or someone
would break somebody.
Or I'd break somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, either one. And it just kind of, it was the guilt. It was this guilt of pretending to be something and pretending to love something that I didn't love.
So when you realize you don't want to be a doctor and you don't want to save lives, you don't want the responsibility.
When you put it that way, I sound awful. Well, you don't want to save lives. You don't want to make a difference.
Listen, I don't want to do that either. I can't imagine the responsibility of having that. But when you realize that that's not what you want to do, where did the idea of hosting acting come from?
It didn't. So when I did medical school, I had a friend who was doing stand-up comedy who brought me onto an open mic.
Okay. Just the very word stand-up comedy,
right,
or words stand-up comedy, just like my heart starts pounding.
It's funny.
Why did you want to do that?
I guess I always enjoyed being a younger child. I was the one who always looked for attention. And my mom, I say people go into stand-up for 2 reasons. Either they weren't hugged enough as a child, or they were hugged too much. Okay. And I was definitely the latter. My mom thought I hung the moon. Everything I did
Are you
was
a mama's
hilarious.
boy?
Totally a mama's boy.
Okay.
And so still, My mom just...
Has that affected your relationships with women?
Oh, yeah. I'm newly single. My girlfriend and I just broke up.
Was it because your mom is hugging you too much?
Because my mom... This just took a turn.
No, I'm just...
It is. Well, I'm a handful because I am
If
still
I open
someone,
up a can of worms, are you getting therapy
like
over this right now?
If a woman dates me, she goes, okay, here's a guy who has a job. He used to be a doctor. He's going to be responsible. And yet I was
caring,
so
he's
spoiled by
loving.
and I think I'm a nice guy, but at the same time, my mom created a monster. I want someone who's going to nurture me and take care of me and spoil me.
You want somebody, your girlfriend, you want to be like your mother.
A little bit. I like to be mothered. I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's terrible.
What does that mean? What does that entail?
It's a connection, and I also
I think we should have a man hug later.
We'll do it.
Just as a goodbye
totally
thing.
do.
Yeah, okay, good.
I
I'm totally comfortable
do.
with that.
And I also think I want someone who's a teammate.
Yeah.
Like in a relationship, I'm someone who's like, hey,
so let's you be you and
lets me be me, supports me, and I do the same for them.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's us against the world.
Yeah.
And so that's,
So you're still trying to find that love.
Still trying to find that
What's
love.
the number that people should call when you decided to make the move? What did your parents say? Go for it?
So
were they worried about you?
Was the hardest. That was the hardest part, I think, was telling my dad, because I really thought he was going to be crushed. Or at least disappointed. He never forced me into it. I think it was more a case of, for me, I didn't grow up with a passion to be a doctor. I think I kind of grew up in a house where achievement was always pushed. Just do your best at whatever it is. Try hard. And obviously, I saw my dad coming home, and I think he had tremendous job satisfaction as a doctor. And so it wasn't that he ever forced me. It was that he set such an example of, I saw how passionate he was about his career and how people appreciated him. And I thought, this is something worthwhile. This is something worthy. This would be a great achievement. And this is perfect on paper. To tell him, like, I've made it, I've followed in your footsteps, and now I don't want this. I thought not only is it disappointing, it's also a little bit of a rejection of what he did. And so I wasn't sure. It took me about a month and a half to work up the courage to say, I'm going to take a year off. And I'm going to go to LA and just
give it a shot.
Honestly, I thought I'll come out for a year. I'll have a fun time. I'll probably come to my senses and realize medicine is a great career and come back. I wasn't confident I was going to come out here and rule the world in
And your first stand-up routine was where?
First time I ever did it was in New York City during med school. And it went great. Because it was all friends.
So you'd already had a taste of it before you had the pivotal moment.
I've done stand-up about 6 or 7 times before I decided I'm taking a year off. I could travel, which I'd done. I could go be a ski bum for a year and, be a bartender. Or I thought I'd never done anything really creative other than stand up a few times. And I thought, I just kind of felt like my whole life had been sports and school. And I thought I want to explore a different side and just kind of have a vision quest or whatever it is.
You wanted to be hugged by an audience.
I wanted to be hugged by an audience. Well, so it's funny you say that, because that's exactly how what happened is when I got on stage out here within 3 weeks, and I'm doing awful open mics. Some of them right up there on
when
Venice.
You say awful, give me,
6
describe
people
a
there
moment.
who were other comics, people just sitting there going, like you tell a joke and you hear, it's funny, but you see, like in an LA crowd, they're very jaded, and so it just bombed.
I want to go back to the first time you ever did stand up, before you bombed at the other one that you were talking about.
Right.
But that first time, apparently that went pretty well.
So it was amazing. I think I'd written the material and performed it in my head hundreds of times.
Do you remember a good joke from that? It better be funnier than the one you told
before. Was it? Oh God. Well, first of all, I didn't go by Matt Iseman. I went by Rock Iseman.
Okay, now why Rock?
Because I thought Matt sounds like such a boring name.
Oh, and Rock?
Like entertainment. Rock sounds like he's a man of action. Yeah, so I was I'm like,
ladies and gentlemen, Rock Iseman.
He introduced her. He goes, Rock Eisner.
Oh.
And I don't remember my first joke. It was something like...
Was it a
There was
doctor
a
joke?
masturbation joke. No, I don't even think I mentioned being a doctor because I didn't think anyone A, would believe it, or B, find it funny.
So just take us into that moment then, that first stand-up routine.
So the first stand-up routine, I'd gone to college in New Jersey, so I had a ton of friends.
Did you have to pay people? Or?
And no, so they're all excited because they want to see me bomb or whatever. It's an excuse for them to drink. So 60 of my friends show up. So the entire room is my friends. And what they did then
That's got to be comforting.
It's comforting, but what they do is they don't want to put you up early because they know your friends will leave. So it probably took 3 hours. And meanwhile, my friends are just getting schnockered because they're drinkers. And so by the time I get on stage, they're drunk. The show went great. I'm like, I love stand-up. And then like a week later, I did another show without 60 of my friends, and it was silence.
Did you feel like, oh, I'm going to give up now?
No, it became this thing though where it taught me the lesson of, instead of thinking of quitting, I'm like, I have to get back on stage again. I have to get this out of my mouth. And I think that's when you know you belong. When you're like, you don't take it, you're like, I'm not going to quit. It's I'm gonna get back on that horse.
Right.
And
but that speaks to your tenacity, because I've met people who've got way more talent than me, and I just see that they don't have the resilience. Like I say to people when they ask me for advice, I say, trying to get a career, find a career in television or film or entertainment in general, it's kind of like a marathon. Yeah. And a lot of people will get to that 18th mile and it gets hard and difficult and they hit that wall and then they give up. And they've got all this talent, but all their life they're so used to being told how talented they are that they don't necessarily want to put the work into then nurturing that talent and pushing that talent.
Well, I completely agree. And one of the things I say is nothing happens on the couch. Like so many people, I think, like you said, feel entitled or feel I'm so talented, people are going to knock down my door.
Right.
And the
phone's going to go and I'm going to be...
The phone's going to go, people are going to discover me. And the reality is people who are just as talented or less talented are out there pounding down doors and going, you have to look at me. You know, and that's why I always tell people, my advice is say yes to everything. There's no project too small. There's no connection too small that you don't know that could pay off. And even just showing up someplace, showing up on a set, you might meet somebody.
And you learn something.
You learn. You
want that
you're around a connection, a
that
network.
Inherent curiosity. I tell people, luck is the residue of design.
Yeah.
It's a quote that I got from my father-in-law, but I love that. Luck is the residue of design. So I tell people, you put in the hard work, eventually it will all pay off. But you're absolutely right. People look at the success end of it, but they don't see the years of work that come before.
And they don't also see when people say, oh, you got one show and then you got another one. That's not by accident. When I look at people who keep getting it, clearly people enjoy working with them, or people think what they do is valuable. So when I look at the Kardashians, it's not my cup of tea. But anyone who's managed to stay relevant for a decade and control pop culture,
they're doing something right.
I tip my cap to them.
Right.
I'm like, it's not my thing, but you're clearly working hard. You're reinventing yourself.
Something's working.
Something's working. So again, I think for people who say, oh, put a camera on me, I'd be that interesting. Like, well, you're not. And that was one of the other things too, I think, is that I appreciate what I do. And I made a point. So when I was on Apprentice, every day.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. No one knows that.
I never said congratulations to you.
No one
What are you talking about? You won.
It was great. It was great.
That's pretty cool.
It was funny. It was. I was really proud to win, and it was great for the charity. But more importantly was every day at one point I would take out my phone and text my friends, like, I'm hanging out with Ricky Williams or Brooke Burke or Arnold Schwarzenegger just said hello to me. And I just remember saying, I never wanted to take this for granted that we're playing make-believe.
Yeah.
And we're getting paid way more money than we ever imagined.
One of the things that I admire about you is just you feel this responsibility to also give back, and I love that you've gone and you've had some interesting experiences performing in front of the troops.
Amazing.
And what does that feel like for you as a performer?
So the first time I went overseas was September 11th, 2002, and to fly on that day over to Korea, I went to South Korea, and so you're not in an active war zone or anything, but to fly overseas to people who are now, you look at them differently. And then to have gone to Afghanistan and Iraq and to see kids who are 18 years of age and to imagine me in high school all of a sudden
faced with that.
And these people are going out there and putting their lives in the line. It's the best audiences you'll ever get and the most appreciative audiences.
Humbling?
And for a second, completely, because again, sometimes we do get caught up in LA or I didn't get this audition. And here you are with a kid
Who's prepared to die.
Who's prepared to die for us to be out here to talk about ninjas. And for a second, when you're telling a joke, you see these people who, we're in huts where there are 80 people and they're out there for 11 months. And this was when they didn't have internet. They had an Xbox. There's no entertainment. They're just sitting. And for a minute, you're telling jokes and you realize right now they're laughing. They're not thinking about, I'm in a war zone. They're just being kids.
I also think that maybe a big part of the charitable aspect of your work, it comes from your own health challenges.
Absolutely. I have rheumatoid arthritis, so that's started a mile and a half away. Actually, Gold's Gym. Venice Beach,
Okay.
Gold's Gym, the mecca of bodybuilding.
Hold on, you go to Gold's Gym?
I went to Gold's Gym because I lived in Venice. So for the first 7 years, I was going to Gold's Gym.
That's
I'm
a
a
TV
Schwarzenegger
show.
fan, as I
Okay.
know. So I'm at Gold's Gym, and I start having pain in my finger, and I'm just like, I'm 30 years old, so I'm thinking I must be, a little tendonitis or something. And then I started jogging, and so it started having pain in my feet. And it was the course of a year and a half. And I was going to see doctors. I was having checkups. I was having x-rays. I was having blood work. They're like, there's nothing wrong with you. We can't find anything wrong. But I knew something was wrong with me. And I continued to have pain and stiffness. And I was losing energy.
Were you trying to diagnose yourself, or?
I didn't make that. Well, of course, I mean, to a certain extent, but I'm like, I also knew enough to know I was seeing rheumatologists. I was seeing orthopedic surgeons. I was seeing acupuncturists. I was seeing holistic doctors. I saw
complete
everything. Complete mystery. And so after a year and a half, during which time I gained 55 pounds, I was sleeping with a neck brace. I was popping pain pills, naproxen, but muscle relaxants.
Right.
I became a shell of myself, and I went in to get an injection on my foot with my dad, and the orthopedic surgeon said, I gotta just take an x-ray before I put a needle in your foot. And he puts the x-ray up and he goes, how long have you had rheumatoid arthritis? And I said, I guess about 5 seconds. He's like, this is RA. I'm like, I just had an x-ray a few months ago. He's like, well, go get your blood work checked. And the next day, everything was positive. So
it's a little concerning that it took a year and a half.
It's one of the things I remember a professor used to say this. Sometimes the body doesn't follow the textbook.
Right.
And
that was you.
And that was me. And it actually turns out that's the case. It can be kind of an insidious disease where you'll see these symptoms, but they just don't have sensitive enough tests yet to detect it.
And then so
I started on a medication, and it was a silver bullet. And I was lucky because this medication that I'm on, it's called a biologic. So rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disease. My body's attacking itself. They came up with these medications, biologics, that downregulate your immune system, but they came out in 98. So this was, as I'm leaving medicine, they're developing this drug that 4 years later turns out to be the silver bullet. And without it, I might be in a wheelchair now. It was a pretty aggressive case. And instead, this drug has arrested the disease. It hasn't progressed in me. And so I'm one of the ones who benefited from this. And so for me, I just thought, I go around to meetings for the Arthritis Foundation and I see people who had the disease before these medications existed or who don't respond to these drugs, and their bodies are ruined. They're wrecked. And I just think, I'm so fortunate that people who came before me gave time, money, resources.
And now you're doing it.
And now I'm trying to do it. And so
and how have you done it?
So for me, I've been giving talks to the Arthritis Foundation. One of the things I also noticed is whenever you try to self-diagnose, whenever you look up a disease, you see the worst case scenario. So I remember when I looked up rheumatoid arthritis, I didn't know anyone who had RA. And I looked it up, and you see these, they're called splay fingers. So you see the hands mangled in the feet, and I think this is going to be me. And what I wanted to do was also be so public about sharing my story. So when people looked up RA, they'd say, oh, wait a second, maybe I can go on and lead a full active life and host Ninja Warrior. And so I just thought how important it was for particularly young kids who get diagnosed to think that this isn't some sort of sentence. This is just something that's going to be a part of you, but you can go on and do so many amazing things. I kind of feel like there are 4 or 5 charities that have become my Arthritis Foundation is obviously my main charity.
And can you just tell us how much money you've raised for them?
So it was $1 million through Apprentice, and then since then it's probably been about another $500,000 through various fundraisers. And every time I do stand up now,
it's so impressive.
Rather than selling merchandise, which is really awkward, like hey, do you want to buy my CD? I give stuff away now. And I give away Ninja Warrior swag. I give away my CD, and I say, take as much as you want. I just ask if you do.
Make a donation.
And I just have a bag there. And it's amazing how much, when I used to try to sell stuff, you'd sell 4 or 5. But when you give it away and ask for a donation, I've ended up raising like $1,000 in a night, for the charity. And it's so nice.
It's a great way of doing it, right?
It's so nice to be able to then say, I inevitably I'll meet someone in the crowd who says, I have RA. I'm like, what's your name?
Yeah.
And then I'll make the donation in their name to the Arthritis Foundation.
So not only do you find out that you have rheumatoid arthritis, then you get hit with a second health scare.
Which ironically, so I was having chest pain, and because I'm on immunosuppressant drugs, I thought if this could be an infection, and because you'd be immunosuppressed, it could actually be a worse infection that it's spreading. My immune system's just not fighting it very well. So I thought I need to get a chest X-ray. It's as far as it went from my diagnostic point of view. The doctor gets a chest X-ray. He's like, it's fine.
Thank God you went to medical school.
Right. I'm enough to know, don't trust yourself.
Right.
And the doctor then finds out I'd just flown. And so one of the risks is clots, pulmonary embolism.
Especially being a big guy too, sitting in a small plane.
So he goes, I want to be thorough and just rule out a clot. So you're going to get a CAT scan. And sends me to the emergency room, and had to wait 7 hours in this ER before they finally, because it's all triage, and I was clearly not urgent. So I'm just sitting. So finally at 2 a.m, get a CAT scan. The doctor comes in. He's like, your lungs are fine. Go home. The next morning, a radiologist rereads everything. So this was just the attending physician who was just looking at the lungs. He reread it, and he's like, your lungs are fine, but we found something on your kidney. And at that point, it was just...
Which is not where they were looking.
It was just coincidental. And it turned out to be
Thank
the opposite
God
side.
for
it was totally unrelated.
People with initiative, right?
It's unbelievable that they caught this, because it was small enough to where I go into the oncologist. He goes, you're lucky. And I go, it's not cancer. He goes, oh, no, this is cancer. But you're lucky because I think we caught this early enough that we can cure this with just surgery. So the kidney cancer is one of those ones that if it's caught early, you cut it out. That's it. No chemo, no radiation, nothing. If you don't, your prognosis precipitously drops. So they found this early because... really because of my rheumatoid arthritis. That was the only reason that I went in to get this chest X-ray that got the CAT scan. So I say rheumatoid arthritis saved me from cancer, because otherwise this tumor was on the back of my kidneys. Like you wouldn't have detected it until it spread. And at that point you probably would have been done. And so it's just this kind of blind luck of the thing you think, this curse, RA, ends up saving me from cancer. And so we look at our lives, and the things that you complain about, you always think it could be worse. And you don't know what the plan is or how things are going to work out. And so I always feel I've been a fairly optimistic person. And even with the cancer, it's funny, I read about you having a life-threatening incident in 19.
Near-death experience, yeah.
And to me, when I was told, because there was a 3-week period from when he said, the rheumatologist called or the radiologist called, said there's an 80% chance this is cancer, and you got to get it checked out. But it took 3 weeks before I had the surgery. They figured it out. It was malignant, but they got it out, and they're like, you're 99% chance you're cured. But during that 3 weeks, it was just this surreal period of trying to understand that I might have cancer, because I didn't feel sick. And it was just this idea of, I remember, I think the song was out, Live Like You're Dying. I think that was right around
Tim McGraw, yeah.
And I remember sitting there thinking, I'm not doing anything different. And I thought, either I'm in complete denial or I'm already leading a pretty good life where I'm doing something that I love. I was doing stand-up and hosting, and I just thought, I don't know, whatever happens, I think I kind of had a peace. There was a peace about it where you felt like, either way, I'll be okay. And fortunately, it worked out better.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah, right? I know.
Have you made any life changes since then? Did you change how you...
This was one of those things that it wasn't related to any of my lifestyle.
Right.
But I think it's just this idea of when you realize how fragile life is. And unfortunately, we have too many reminders of, losing friends, losing whatever.
And when you get older, you realize
exponentially
just how fast life is going. Yeah. And you can tell the young people that, and they won't believe you.
You can't. It's one of those things that you just have to learn on your own. And to I think to appreciate it too. And like just what we were saying, it's so easy to get caught up in the daily
and things
routine,
that don't matter.
Things that don't matter.
And all of a sudden you realize the years have gone by.
Years go by, and these things of putting off things that you want to do. And so my dad, I've had this, he's starting to slow down.
How old is he now?
He's 78. And
is he still practicing?
He stopped practicing, and I think he kind of realized that his mind was not as sharp. And so for me, it's been really hard because he's always been the larger than life figure.
Yeah.
This guy,
I think that's really hard.
6'4", 240, like this big hulk of a man who was the best read, smartest guy I've ever known. And I think took such pride in his mind, and now he's losing it. And I think it's just devastating him. And it's hard for us.
When you start to think about, your dad's about the same age as my dad, and you go, okay, so he's 78 years old. If he has a good life, he's maybe got another 7 summers.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what do they say? 3 school years and 10? He's already gone past that. Yeah. And so then you start to think about it in terms of summers or moments, and then you think,
that's when it gets scary.
I need to pick up the phone. Yeah. We got to plan something. We have to do something now.
And I talked to him about it. And I talked to him and I said, with your health, like, what are we doing? Do you want to visit specialists? Do you want to fight? What do you want to do? And he goes, I want to make memories. Yeah. I want to spend time with my family.
How cool is that though, to hear that from your father?
Yeah, it's just like, let's do, what's
some good memory that you, like, what's something that you think of when you think of your dad? When I think of
my dad, one of the best moments that I had was, so he was a doctor and very busy, but he always, like, I just remember when he would come home, we'd play catch. I love baseball. And I would just make him throw pop flies with me till the sun went down. And
that's a good memory.
It was great. And so I ended up playing baseball in college.
You were pretty good.
And I was okay. But I went to Princeton.
I think you might have played for your university,
I went to Princeton, and where my dad had gone. And so my sophomore year, we were...
Did he ever see you play?
Playing for the championship. My parents flew out. And my dad's in the crowd. I pitch. I throw a complete game. We win. We win the league. And I got the game ball. And I get a walk over. And my dad's there on the sidelines. And I get to give him the game ball. And it's just like we got a photo, like the father and son. And that's sitting on his dresser at home.
You're trying to make me cry.
And it's one of those moments of like of you see it now. I see it more clearly now as I go back and see friends who have kids in school and think about my dad having been my age there and now seeing me have this moment and get to share it with him and know that I only had this moment because of him, because he spent all that time.
Which goes back to why you're here. You're here to find a wife. Yeah, the number to call is. We need to start making babies.
I'm going to be an old dad.
You need a wife who loves baseball. You need to make a baby and create this moment again.
So my brother has a 5-year-old niece, and I have become invisible, Phil. Whenever that girl is around, my mom is just like, this is it. This little girl
That's the
has
future.
become her life.
Are you getting less hugs now?
My mom is
She's not hugging you as much.
She grew up, it was my brother, me, and my dad. So it was
Right.
just full testosterone. And now she has this little girl who loves to snuggle and read and give grandma
I can see
kisses.
you're slightly hurt by
And
this.
it is,
Who knew that a 5-year-old girl
invisible
would make you
What
invisible
about
to
me,
you? Yes.
Mom? I'm 47. I still need my hug.
We so have to find a wife for you.
It's a handful. It is a handful.
Well, you're a handful.
People come home and my room is unchanged since I graduated from high school. So it's still got like
Matt,
the Schwarzenegger poster.
I don't know. That just sounds
the
a
biggest
little,
red flag for
that
any
sounds,
woman.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't think, I love Arnold, but I think
on paper, I'm grateful. And then they meet me and they're like,
they
you
go
are
to
a
you, go
child.
home and they say, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I just don't think that's going to work.
They look at my mom and go, "You've ruined him."
You know,
They
you
realize
really
it's
have.
just my little baby.
The show, Ninja Warrior, I love the show.
Thank you.
It started out on cable.
On G4, a network that doesn't even exist anymore.
And I remember, look, this space is something that I am so interested in. The idea of testing yourself physically, like a competition show where you're tested physically. And for me, I remember getting a call from my daughter because the first woman to complete
Casey Catanzaro.
Casey,
yeah.
that's right.
Yes.
And that online just exploded.
That changed our show.
And for my daughter, once she saw that pulled her in because she was like, she loved the idea that this woman could kick ass.
And ours is one of the shows where you have men and women competing on the same course, one of the few shows.
Which is unique.
And it was unique. And women didn't know they could do it until they saw Casey do it. And then all of a sudden it's this idea of, oh, maybe I can try this.
Broke the glass ceiling. Boom.
When we look at our most popular ninjas, out of the top 10, 7 of them are women.
Have you had any Wounded Warriors on?
We've had some Wounded Warriors on, a few of them. And, again, you tell these stories and I always, half the time now, I find myself saying, what's your excuse?
Yeah.
What's your excuse for not pursuing your dream? What's your excuse for not going after something when this person who's been through something most of us could never imagine is out here putting themselves through something that, this unbelievable, rigorous physical challenge. And I think it's a good metaphor. It's a good metaphor just to kind of see people sacrifice and to not make excuses, because we do. I think it's so easy in life to find reasons, and like we were saying, to find a reason of, well, they just didn't like me because they thought I was too tall or something, instead of saying I could do better.
Right.
And
Or
putting it
just
on
having
yourself.
that inner confidence that just because someone doesn't like you doesn't mean that
Right.
you're not a viable
to handle
entity.
rejection. Right.
Just to understand that not everybody can like you.
Yeah.
We work in a subjective business.
especially with social media.
Yeah.
Where everybody can
loves
have an
the
opinion.
bash
And so often people would rather complain than praise.
Yeah. You worked on General Hospital once, right?
I did.
Yeah.
So this is the great part. This was my first.
I'm just
acting
wondering if
break.
you ever got to use your doctor
So this
skills.
is it. I'm a doctor. I go in there. They're like, we don't believe you as a doctor. They cast me as a date rapist. I literally had to.
And they found you
on
believable?
Valentine's
Oh,
Day.
that's
I
just
had
wrong.
to drug a girl's drink.
You know that this is part of the problem and why you're not getting a date?
It is.
Yeah, you know
girls
that, right?
see me and they go, I remember you.
Oh, wow. You're the guy from...
My name was Rock Fowler, too. Like, they took my comedy name and Rock Fowler. It was... I ended up dead in a dumpster. It was
Fowler?
really... that was foul. Like, they're very literal. Like, he's a foul guy.
He was a foul guy?
Listen,
Rock
they're churning out
Fowler,
80 pages
who ends
a day.
up in a dumpster?
Ended up dead in a dumpster. Yeah, on General Hospital.
You need to leave him there.
That was in my past.
Yeah,
That was,
you're done with that.
It was funny. Again, I think coming out here, I thought I would be an actor, a comedic actor, something.
Any desire to do any acting?
I wouldn't mind it, but I've gotten...
You like the hosting more?
I love
or?
hosting. I love being myself. I love the idea of offering my
you're
own
good at being
opinions.
yourself.
And it's kind of we're a small group,
Yeah.
these reality show hosts.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's fun to
Have
see.
you met other reality star hosts?
Some of them, Mark
hosts?
Wahlberg,
nice guy.
who did some of super nice.
Yeah.
Super nice guy. Most of them have been nice. Mario Lopez, who did some of it. I'm trying to think.
Have you met Jeff Probst or?
I met Probst briefly. Seemed really nice too.
Nice guy. Yeah, I go back.
I mean, I feel like you guys are kind of the OGs.
What's OGs?
The original gangsters.
the
you guys have been
original
doing
gangster?
it for.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't down with that
You guys have
acronym.
been doing it for so.
What are you trying to say?
I'm saying like you guys are the ones who
What
created it.
What are you trying? Why don't you
created the
just say
genre.
it? You want to call me old? Let's be honest.
You act a lot younger than
How's
I do.
the
You look great.
how's the plastic surgery working on me? Is it good?
That's the one advantage we
Look
have.
at
We
the
just get
25 stitches right there.
distinguished,
I had a little nose tuck right here.
Oh my God!
See that?
See, I'm getting them everywhere else. I
What
just
have you
had
had?
surgery. So I tried this. I'm so
Butt implants?
butt implants. No, I shattered my foot because of the RA. I tried the course, shattered my foot, had foot surgery.
You did the ninja course and
did
shattered
the
your
ninja
foot.
course. I just did a charity ski race, wiped out at the end. And
You're terribly accident prone, aren't you?
Partially tore my pec. No, I hadn't skied in a year, and I'm racing against a 28-year-old.
Oh, that was a great idea, wasn't
so
it?
I sell out and wipe out, partially tear my pec. Just had the PRP, the plasma-rich or platelet-rich plasma injection.
Okay.
And then I just sprained my ankle 3 nights ago in Dallas trying one of the obstacles again. I am just they're
You're
like,
a wreck. Let's be
And
honest.
they went in and the first thing they're like, sign this release. I'm like, I'm not going to sue you guys. This was totally on me.
Look, please don't trip on the way out of
I
here.
mean,
I
I
can't deal with it.
It is. So I have lost some of the sensation in my feet. I think that's my excuse for my balance being a little bit off.
Yeah.
But I am definitely not the athlete that I think I am in my head still or ever was.
None of us are.
It really is. Age is cruel in that regard.
It is.
When you
But
you
you're
go
just a
out
young
there,
man. You're just getting started.
47 and I'm holding up. But it.
You look good for 47. Where are we going to see you in when you're 57? 10 years from now?
I hope still. I would love to still be hosting Ninja Warrior if it were still going on.
I don't see why you won't be.
What I would love to be doing is honestly, I don't know what. I just wanna work. I wanna keep doing.
Having
keep
fun.
hosting. I want to keep having fun. I hope I'm still doing stand up. I love the intimacy and immediacy of being on stage with a crowd of people because
You want to be hugged. Let's be honest.
It's
being hugged by the audience.
It
They
is,
want
but there's the immediacy of it. You know, so often we do our shows and we have a crowd there, so you get some sense of it. But so often, you know, you're shooting in the
and you're talking into a dead camera.
into a dead camera.
Yeah.
You don't know what the response is going to be. But there's something about stand-up where it's like, this is me in a crowd with just a microphone, and people can clap, people can smile, but they don't fake
People
laughter.
can throw things at
They
you.
can throw things, but you know if a joke is funny or not. And I love the immediacy of right now, be on it. You know, where you do something and you have this. I liken it
That
to
instant reaction.
I've never surfed, but to me, I call it riding
Please
the
don't
wave.
surf, by the way, based on your accident-prone history.
The sharks
Don't
would be out there like, listen, you're going to run into us.
Don't surf.
I call it this idea of when stand-up is going well, it just feels like you're on the crest of a wave with this tremendous energy in a room. It is such a high for me doing stand-up that it's something I always hope I do.
Have you got a doctor joke that always works?
No, that always works. Nothing always
Okay.
works.
What's your
So my
go-to?
go-to doctor joke is what is it? I'm a doctor who quit being a doctor to do stand-up comedy, and not just because of the lawsuits. Let's see, it didn't always work. No, it's because I believe laughter is the best medicine.
Yes.
Turns out Vicodin works a hell of a lot better. Okay, see, they're
on.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a tough audience.
Yeah.
They're not drunk. It's early in the morning.
I'm gonna loop in some laughter track at the end of this.
Yes, please.
All right, so a couple questions to end with.
Let's do it.
The last time you laughed so hard
Oh,
that
my God.
you cried. You're crying right now, actually.
I was just talking to a friend about this, how I think that is one of the best feelings in life. And we were talking to my mom was talking about her mom who's passed away. And my grandma tells this joke, and my mom said my grandma could never tell the joke right because she would always get the punchline wrong because she'd be laughing so hard. My mom was trying to tell how my grandma told this story when we were just home.
and it was funnier listening to
It
your
was
mom
funnier
tell
listening
that.
to my mom because she was remembering her mom telling it, and we were all just laughing and laughing. And it was one of those things where when you can't breathe
Right.
and you're just shaking. And this was last weekend, and it was just one of those things where it felt like I'd run a marathon afterwards.
You're gonna take a trip across country. you could take 3 people in the car with you from any time in history.
Right.
Who's in the car with you?
For me, I think the 3 people, because laughter is so funny, it would be Will Ferrell,
Wow.
Eddie Murphy, and Brian Regan. Because to me, a road trip would be...
To me, that's a disaster waiting to happen, by the way, because
Well,
you
I
guys
would
would be
love it.
laughing so hard that you'd be careering off the road.
Because I love, for me, I've done road trips. I love exploring the U.S., but to me, it's the journey. And being in a car for hours, especially before you had iPhones or satellite radio.
Well, you entertained yourself.
You just had to talk.
And you played I Spy.
The idea of the I Spy or whatever it was, just the road trips where you just start telling stories. And it would be that thing of, I feel like the laughter, just to be with the 3 guys who I think have made me laugh the most in my life.
Have you met any of them?
I met Will Ferrell briefly, and Brian Regan's a comedian I've met. Eddie Murphy never. And the idea of just being with them and just cutting loose and just saying like, let's just have a couple, someone's driving, someone else will drive. We'll have a couple pops and just let the stories go.
And now, kind of a poignant question. If you knew that you were going to die at midnight tomorrow, what would you do with your last day on Earth?
I would immediately jump on a plane and fly home to Denver and hang out with my family and my friends who were in town, and then have my mom make Thanksgiving dinner, probably watch like some old home videos, and then like at 10:30 I would go over to the comedy club and go on stage and finish my set at 11:59 and 59 and put the mic in and then just drop dead.
From stand up to fall down.
I would want my family to be there, and I would want to tell my last joke and then just go.
Last joke, what would you throw out there?
I don't know. I would go, I have the solution to life, ladies and gentlemen. That's it. And die right there. And die right there.
Thanks, man.
Let's go. There it is.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil.
If you have a really cool story that you want to share with us, then why not share it? Maybe you'll become my next guest. Don't forget, you can watch this podcast online at philkeoghan.com.